One of my leaders say, and I was a hardcore packaging guy, and he looked at me and he said, you know what, Jerome, the best package is no package. This is much more stress. And yes, a lot of companies are struggling in order to fulfill this requirement because there is new technology, new material that needs to be there. And sometimes we are reaching the limits of the physics and the materials there.
Let's say, imagine I am one of the foundry or IDM who's reached that physical limit or ceiling. What advice would you have for me? Or what would you guide me to do?
So, in fact, most of the company reach the ceiling because they still work in silo. And one of the things that makes a lot of difference is if you think only of, I do the die, I do the package, and I do the product differently, then you reach very rapidly the limits because you have too many boundary conditions.
Why do you feel that they're working in silos? Why is that the case?
What I have seen in the past is silo exists because teams are not working towards common goal. They are working towards group's goal or silo goal. And as soon as you start to change the approach and to say, let's think about we are all here to build a solution and to bring a competitive advantage, and we are all working toward the same goals.
Interesting. So if we transition into the power electronics world then, which is where you spent your recent decade in, as one would say, automotive differentiation, where does packaging move the needle most for automotive? Is it in the thermal paths? Is it reliability under mission profiles? Is it the size, or is it the cost of test?
Well, I think that the main differentiation that the packaging is bringing in the automotive is really about making sure that we guarantee a good thermal path and then a reliable interconnect. A lot of failure are happening in automotive, or were happening in automotive, because the interconnect were not able to sustain the mission profile.
So, if we talk about designing for reliability, which is the biggest issue that I hear most of the time with GaN at the end of it though, which stress models, let's say power cycling, vibration or humidity condensation, are most underestimated, and how would you de-risk them early?
Because the real life of a product is not just power cycle. It's power cycle while you are in vibration and potentially in some humidity. So I think beside thinking of the normal reliability test or qualification test, it's extremely important at the early stage of the development that each engineer think about failure mechanism or failure mode driven test, and then do combined test on test vehicle that will be representative of the final product. Now, if I look about what will happen maybe in 5 or 10 years, it's maybe not an issue about wide band gap. It's maybe ultra wide band gap that's going to come. And then what will be the place for GaN on GaN? What will be the place for diamond? I think there is some talk and some company that start to wonder. I will say I've been very, very impressed by China and by their ability to really, I will say, catch up on some area of the technology, and in some domain take the leads, right? They have been really able to develop ecosystem, understanding of all the application, and I think that they have been also doing this on a way that was much, much faster than what I will say maybe European or US company can do. I think it's more about people think that semiconductor is always about the front end.
Jerome, if you could be, as you mentioned, transparent as you are with your team, but in this podcast, do you believe that this industry is going to hit $1 trillion by 2030?
I believe that.
For the breakthrough. Your value proposition is we don't just advise.
Yeah.
We partner, execute, and invest.
Yeah.
How does that change engagement models and accountability versus traditional consulting out there?
So I think that
Welcome Jerome Teysseyre, co-founder and managing partner of Next Stage Ventures, a key architect helping to shape the essential connection between deep tech innovation and market execution.
With over 2 decades of invaluable globe-trotting experience, Jerome's profound understanding encompasses the intricate details of advanced packaging, engineering roadmaps, and strategic portfolio growth. His leadership is now focused on empowering startups through Next Stage Ventures' unique model, solidifying their impact on the industry.
Tune in to explore how his expertise helps bridge the demands of AI and power with the capabilities of emerging semiconductor companies, driving forward the advanced manufacturing that powers our modern world. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome back to the Semiconductor Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Salah Nasri, and whether you are an industry veteran or someone who's just curious about semiconductor manufacturing, this is your podcast. I have a huge favor to ask to all of you. We've had more than 200,000 views on the platform, but only 3% of you in the back end are subscribed to the platform. So please do me a favor and click that subscribe button. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure to welcome our guest today, Jerome Teysseyre. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Salah. Good afternoon. Welcome to Singapore.
Thank you. It's great to be back here, Jerome. Jerome, so what are you up to now? What is? I've known you well from the onsemi days. What's new now?
Well, I think it's a very important time for my career and then for one of the co-founder that I had, right? We just started an advisory company, right, with John Abella. We have both been in the industry for 25 years, working with a global corporation. And now we wanted to join our force in order to kind of steer and help all the startup to scale, go to market, and really valorize all their IP and business. So, the exciting time.
And what's the name of the new venture?
So the name of the company is Next Stage Venture.
Next Stage Venture. Why did you come up with this? How did this come up?
Well, so when we look at this, we are both grounded with John in engineering and development. That was the foundation of this. And when we look at this, all engineering is following a step or a stage gate process, right? So when we look at this, we say, hey, what we want to do now is use this stage gate process in order to help startups and also some company from concept to market, right? So that's how Next Stage came on board. Now there is the second part that is .venture, right? And here we wanted to position ourselves in something slightly different, right? And what we like to say, at least in the motto of the company, is that we don't just advise, we partner, we execute, and we invest, right? And the venture part is really about being with the startup in order to help them and then to execute their strategy and eventually invest with them on some of the things.
I see. And are there any specific areas that you're focusing on, in the industry? I mean, knowing you and John originating in the world of packaging, is that going to be the specialty or?
Yeah. The first specialty that we are addressing is about, I would say, packaging, advanced packaging. Advanced packaging is buzzing when we look at the mega trend. It is really helping for power. This is an area where I work with, but also on all what is related to AI, to the transition of photonics. There is a lot of things happening, and there is a lot of needs for all the startups and company to go to market and have some help.
I see. And from your perspective and John's perspective as well, what's the sweet spot for you? I mean, would it be with the OSATs, with the foundries, IDMs, or equipment and material manufacturers? Who would see the most value in working with you?
Yeah. So when we look at John and I, and we are very having very complementary skills, right? I'm coming with a background of engineering development, complex portfolio management, and a strategic aspect, right, about the technology. John is coming with more the sales, the marketing, the business development. So when we bring this together, obviously this can help a lot of startup company to bring them the full picture and then some of the helps that we learn from the corporation. But also in some cases, there is some need on some specific advisory role for some company on equipment, materials, right? Also some IDM that have specific needs. And here also we can bring our knowledge, or we can bring also some of our network in order to connect the dot and help them to find solution faster.
Marvelous. Yeah, I think, of course, with your career journey over 25 years, you've led packaging innovation across continents, built global teams. What early roles or moments most shaped your approach to turning technology into business strategy or impact?
Yeah, so I will say there is two periods in my career, right, before the third one that we are just starting now. The first part was really rooted in STMicroelectronics, right, where I started to work and where we started to develop what we call the BGA or the ball grid array platform. So this was really the initiation of a new platform at that time that eventually grew up through memories, grew up through ASIC, system in package, and was even pushing the limits to be the first wafer level packaging and fan out, right? So all this was really rooted by going to market with new technology, but also going to market fast because the cycle were very fast. So that was the first part that really rooted me on the technical aspect and created the network. The second half of my career is where I turn more, I would say, to a business approach. So I made a jump from signal, camera sensor, MEMS to power, right? Packaging. And here the complexity or the challenge where how can we bring some of this company that has been there for quite some time or for a long time as a fast follower to become leader as they come with new technology like silicon carbide, and they need to reinvent themselves in order to create a new product, new innovation. So these two things really position me on the link between engineering and strategy, right? And this is where I like to say that I always like to operate at this intersection of engineering and strategy where we need to develop product, but we need to develop good technology, and then we need to position ourselves on a competitive advantage for the long term.
Sure. So, you say you thrive at the intersection of engineering and strategy, or maybe energy can be included as well. What habits or frameworks help you translate breakthroughs into measurable outcomes then from your side?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I have developed, right, through the year is this duality of the mindset. So I'm an engineer, right? And I like to go deep. I like to understand the things. I like to go through the blueprint. But at the same time, through my career, I learn also how to take a step back and then reflect on, is this making sense and where the technology fit, right? So one of the habits that I used to do and I do more and more is really the team needs sometimes clarity. They really need clarity. While they know the how, they have difficulty sometimes to understand the why they do the thing. So I'm really spending a lot of time to bring clarity so that they can understand the why and then connect to the how the things.
So if we look at, very interesting, actually a random question I'd love to ask you is that I don't know how long ago you were at ST, but how long ago was it?
Was about 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Okay.
12 years ago.
So my last podcast was on Pascal Pistoria. So you were you there at his time?
Absolutely.
You were there at his time?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had the privilege to work there, and he was still 5 years CEO there, right? So really, I think fantastic person, right? On this, when I think of this, and also all the things that he did, right? The value that he drive for the corporation, the culture, and also the development for all the staff was really, really exceptional, right? So also, I had the privilege to work in the company that Pasquale Pistorio was leading, and that's checked me a lot.
Remarkable. So if we look at the early packaging innovations, and of course this will be in your ST time. So if we're looking at like BGA or SIP or even if we talk about embedding and optical sensors, in your phase at that time, you worked on BGA and system in package, embedding, and of course in optical camera sensors. What would you say were the hard lessons from these programs that still guide your decisions today?
Yeah. So I think all this program were having two specific things, right? First is a fast time to market, right? Because that's where we were applying on the mobile phone and everything was booming. But also the need for advanced technology, because there were a need to develop new material, new technology, new design rule, right? And one of the things that really strike me, and I still continue today, is how important is the initial stage of the program and the design review. A lot of things are happening at the design review, and this is where almost the project break or fail, right? So really making sure that at the design review, you get the right cross-functional team involved, that you get the right risk assessment, and that you bring on board the right partner is really, really important. One of the things also that is really driving me on this is how you maximize learning, right? Because you cannot repeat every time. So either going through a platform approach or also developing, I would say, model simulation that will allow you as you progress to really anticipate all the risk and make sure that you can qualify first time is really, really important.
So if you're looking at like, what would be interesting to understand is that from one-off wins to platforms, how did you evolve point solutions into reusable roadmap able technology platforms that multiple product lines could leverage from?
Yeah. So when you look at the development cycle time, right, and what we call about the stage gate, right, one of the things that really is taking time is the qualification process, right? Depending on the reliability test that you do, this is really taking time. So what we place, right, with my team and what we have been working is placing a lot of emphasis on developing the design rule, developing the design kit. So how do you move from a single point solution to something that is scalable, understanding the boundary condition of it, and making sure that really you understand where are the cliffs so that you can really operate in a safe environment, and this safe environment allow you to scale and to scale faster.
Do you think that's the biggest frustration at the moment with most companies in terms of reliability and testing?
I think there is a lot of, I don't know if it's a frustration, but there is a lot of challenge. The reliability requirements are increasing. The technology that we are having now, for instance, if you look in the power domain, right, most of the technology are able to operate at 200, 225 degrees C. So this is extending the temperature range. This is much more stress. And yes, a lot of companies are struggling in order to fulfill this requirement because there is new technology, new material that needs to be there. And sometimes we are reaching the limits of the physics and the materials there.
And when we do reach, I mean, as you're, let's say, imagine I am one of the foundry or IDM who's reached that physical limit or ceiling. What advice would you have for me?
Well,
or what would you guide me to do?
So, in fact, most of the company reach the ceiling because they still work in silo. And one of the things that makes a lot of difference is if you think only of, I do the die, I do the package, and I do the product differently, then you reach very rapidly the limits because you have too many boundary conditions that everybody put. Now, as you come on something that is working together, optimizing the device, the packaging, but also all the system application, then you have much more freedom to optimize, find trade-off, and then push some of these boundary conditions.
Why do you feel that they're working in silos? Why is that the case?
I think it's maybe historical, I would say, but this disappear. The semiconductor market was pretty much for a long time a bit about the front end against the back end, right?
Right.
The front end is doing the part, the back end is doing the part, and I think this disappeared on the last 15 years. I believe that most of the company have realized, starting with the introduction, for instance, of the low K, right? It was in the year 2000. The companies start to realize that it's not just a die in the package. You need to find the die, the package, and what is in between in order to find something that is robust. So this evolved, but sometimes some habits are difficult to change.
Yeah. And is that purely a culture issue? I mean, do you feel that this is purely a culture issue, or is it something else?
I think there is a bit of culture issue, right? But I think it's also a leadership issue. On these things, what I have seen in the past is silo exists because teams are not working towards common goal. They are working towards group's goal or silo goal. And as soon as you start to change the approach and to say, let's think about we are all here to build a solution and to bring a competitive advantage, and we are all working toward the same goals, no matter where you work, and no matter in which organization you are, then this start to change the game. But that's really start also with leadership pushing this, right?
Interesting. So moving on from that experience, you were also involved in building a packaging center of excellence.
Yep.
And you set up in Southeast Asia here. Was it in Singapore, Malaysia, or?
Yeah. So that was in Singapore. Singapore. So at that time, and I think I like to start with this quote because this quote stay with me. One of my leaders say, and I was a hardcore packaging guy, and he look at me and he say, "You know what, Jerome? The best package is no package." And then I said, "Okay." So you have certainly
is no package.
Yeah, and in fact, what he meant, right, is packaging will need also to have an evolution, right? We will need to start to think differently between the traditional substrate, the traditional lead frame package, right? And what he meant is that we need to go through, I would say, wafer level packaging, advanced packaging, and fan out. So at that time, he asked me to come here in Singapore. I was in Europe, and then to start this center of excellence, right? That we started here in Singapore. It was not something that we were doing alone. It was something in Singapore and selected Singapore because we were here with, I would say, two partners. So one German IDM and then one of that had the line. And then we put resources together in order to make sure that the first generation of the technology can go to market, right? Because it was not yet fully ready. But also we wanted, as it was a technology, to bring together a roadmap and to demonstrate what capability we can do with this kind of technology. And what is very interesting to see, and I was thinking about this, it was about 10 years ago. But when you look now what is happening in advanced packaging, in panel level assembly, what will drive AI, this is some of the things that we started 10 years ago. How to do TSV, how to do multi-die packaging, how do you thin them, how do you stack them? So I think it was a very, very good experience and really enabled in Singapore by the collaboration and the ecosystem that you can find in.
So was this the EWLB fan-out that you were working on? Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say were the hardest or maybe the toughest technical and organizational hurdles that you kind of face building this COE?
I think that one of the biggest difficulty we had at that time was really to make sure that we can provide to our customer something that will be robust and with the right supply chain. That was something that was difficult for us at the start because this technology was not yet mature, not yet accepted, and all the customers were looking at it, but then with some reluctance. So it took us quite some time to demonstrate not only what we can do today, but what will be the potential of the technology.
And what was the driver to kind of build this center of excellence? I mean, I'm seeing center of excellence is being built up now. So here in Singapore, for example, you have the applied materials one that's just been built up recently. Yeah. There's a multiple center of excellences being put around the world. What's the purpose behind it?
Well, I think the purpose behind this center of excellence is when we go to this kind of technology, you cannot do the things alone. So you need to join forces between different partners where all come with some specific skills and knowledge, and where we put this together in order to bring commonly the technology to the market. And when you look at this EWLB that we did, that's really what we did. We came one of that to IDM. We bring as well some equipment supplier, plus the support of, I would say, EDB, A-Star, IME, to help us also on some fundamental work, right? So that was really to create this ecosystem to make sure that we can accelerate the technology acceptance.
Thanks, sir. So out of interest, how does the ROI perspective of the Center of Excellence work? Is it a perspective where everyone kind of chips in some sort of budget to build up and then the licensing comes out of it or royalties come out and everyone gets a fair share? Or
that was the way. The way was really to make sure that we can go to market first with a lead customer. And then after this, whatever was developed together, right, as part of the consortium in terms of technology, each company was allowed to use it on the way they want, right? So that was really guaranteeing a go-to-market plus the next step on the roadmap.
Got you.
Yeah.
And now, which process levers, whether it be RDL design, molding, warpage control, debond or rebond strategies, or even metrology, as you mentioned, mattered most to make fan-out robust at scale?
Yeah. Well, I think that when we look at the first step of the fan-out is to take a wafer and to rebuild it on a panel, right? So the first step that is really essential is to make sure that we can control this, I would say, reconstruction of the wafer, and that when the wafer is molded, the warpage is really, really stable. Because if you are not able to get something stable, and imagine if you are on 300 by 300, but you go to 600 by 600, it's even more critical later on if you want to go to fine pitch, if you want to go to all process TSV, right? So already getting the warpage under control is important. Later on, the metrology measurement and then being with the back-end process adaptive is important.
Interesting. So if we transition into the power electronics world then, which is where you spent your recent decade in, as one would say, automotive differentiation, where does packaging move the needle most for automotive? Is it in the thermal paths? Is it reliability under mission profiles? Is it the size, or is it the cost of test?
Well, I think that the main differentiation that the packaging is bringing in the automotive is really about making sure that we guarantee a good thermal path and then a reliable interconnect. A lot of failure are happening in automotive, or were happening in automotive, because the interconnect were not able to sustain the mission profile. So that's where providing the right packaging solution is important.
And then when, of course, the key topic in the world of power is the silicon carbide GaN topic, right? What package level innovations, whether it be like substrate interposers, or if you've got interconnects, die attach, or embedded cooling, are the most critical to unlock performance and lifetime in these wafers?
Yeah. So I think first, when we look at wide band gap, we talk about silicon carbide and we talk about GaN, and I think the devices are different. Silicon carbide being vertical, GaN being something that is more lateral. So this is bringing different requirements for the packaging. We cannot integrate the same way a silicon carbide or a GaN, or at least we cannot integrate today with the technology available on the same way, and there is a way to change. What is important when we look at this is really about how are you selecting the right material properties first to make sure that can accommodate the stress at a system level. But when we look at this, two aspects, I would say. First, wide band gap, high switching frequency, we need to reduce the losses. So this is enabled by the design and by the choice of interconnect. Second, we need to make sure that the reliability and the mission profile are fulfilled right on this. And it's all about thermal management and how you can select the right material so that the stress can be withstood.
So, if we talk about designing for reliability, which is the biggest issue that I hear most of the time with GaN at the end of it, though, which stress models, let's say power cycling, vibration, or humidity condensation, are most underestimated, and how would you de-risk them early?
Yeah. So I think the three that you mentioned are important, right? This is part of the basic requirement that you need to pass, right? Making sure that you can manage the power cycle, get there in humidity or just in vibration. I think what is unique and what the company needs to think now is how do you combine the test? Because the real life of a product is not just power cycle. It's power cycle while you are in vibration and potentially in some humidity. So I think beside thinking of the normal reliability test or qualification test, it's extremely important at the early stage of the development that each engineer think about failure mechanism or failure mode driven test, and then do combined test on test vehicle that will be representative of the final product, but that must be much simpler so that you can really characterize them very deeply.
And, if so from your perspective, what would be interesting to understand is that currently, or evidently, there's a bottleneck, especially with the use of EV cars. and especially with the implementation of silicon carbide. We have to understand that the reason why silicon carbide became so successful is because there was a genuine need for it at the end of the day. What do you feel will be the resurrection of silicon carbide? Do you think there will be a resurrection? And also what would be interesting to understand is GaN being hyped for now to win the game or not?
Yeah. So I think silicon carbide is definitively ahead, I would say, at least in the high voltage area, right? And for traction inverter. So this is really, I think, a matter of making sure that the cost, right, is right, and that the packaging solution are right, and that the system integration are right for silicon carbide. So I think silicon carbide will move. Now, definitively, GaN is a much cheaper, I would say, technology, right? Starting with the substrate, with the ability to go up to 12-inch. And there is a lot of push in order to get GaN to work at least on some of the 800 volt. Right?
Yeah.
So that's for lateral GaN. Now, if I look about what will happen maybe in 5 or 10 years, it's maybe not an issue about wide band gap. It's maybe ultra wide band gap that's going to come. And then what will be the place for GaN on GaN? What will be the place for diamond? I think there is some talk and some company that start to wonder, we're going to do packaging for this technology, because if we can really do this, that will improve even further the efficiency for all the traction inverter. So,
and looking at that type of field, maybe I think it's the right time to ask you this, because you're no longer representing an international company.
Yeah.
What's your gut instincts about the dominance of China in the world of EVs and power semiconductors?
Yeah.
Because in the substrate side of things, I think now with the eradication of some or certain companies, as you know, is they're really in the high figures now, especially on the substrate side.
Yeah. Well, I will say I've been very, very impressed by China and by their ability to really, I will say, catch up on some area of the technology, and in some domain take the leads, right? They have been really able to develop ecosystem, understanding of all the application. And I think that they have been also doing this on a way that was much, much faster than what I will say maybe European or US company can do. So I think well done. They really have done a great job on this, and very respectful about their capability. I was there some time ago, and I have been really, really impressed by the level of competency that they develop.
Yeah. I think the innovation will be the key differentiator. But what I hear most of the time is cost is the issue. So they are kind of, using different cost methodologies to beat international competition. But for the EV manufacturer, cost is pretty much the priority if it's delivering the exact requirements, right?
Yeah, well, for the car and the EV, we like to use as a KPI the dollar per kilowatt, right? So there is always a hype about, I want a bigger car, I want a bigger engine, I want something that's going to go longer. But at the end of the day, it's all end up on the dollar per kilowatt. And I do believe that a lot of companies in China have been able, through some vertical integration, but also through some packaging solution, to develop very effective technical solution that are also cost effective. Yeah.
So if we talk about choosing the right bets, then, let's say from a strategic point of view or roadmap or even portfolio, what criteria, whether if we talk about TAM, if we talk about manufacturability, supply chain risk, standardization path, or even time to qualify, guide your greenlighting of new packaging programs?
Yeah. Well, I think there is 4 components for me. We always talk about quality, time, performance, and cost. The first one that is non-negotiable is quality. I'm never let go a program and compromise the quality, right? So that's really, for me, a go or no go based on the quality and based on the confidence level that we can achieve the quality. After, I will say it's an optimization. When you must guarantee quality, then you need to find the right compromise and optimize what is the right time, the right performance, and the right cost, right? So this is where we really look at the ROI and making sure that we take the right decision with the business unit, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about getting the performance through a nice technology, but it's making it to place ourselves in a competitive advantage. And like you say, cost is going to always be an issue at some point, right?
Yeah.
For car and then for electronics, right? We have been in this mode for years. So
where does scaling come into the game in this perspective?
Well, the scaling, I think it's part for me at what I meant at time, right? Time and cost. So most of the time, it's important to make sure that we design it right and that we get all the operation involved from the beginning as well, right? So when you say, when do I decide? It's not only me. We bring operation from day one, because at the end of the day, in a lot of activities, we were doing the development, but we were partnering with operation to bring this to life. So it's not just about getting the choice on the technology, but getting also the agreement from the operation that this is something that's going to be manufacturable.
And how would you then decide when to pursue a common platform versus a bespoke design for a strategic customer application?
Yeah. So here, it really also aligned to, at the corporate level, how do you manage your technology portfolio and how do you go for your customer engagement? So most of the time, we have some kind of checklist, right? When we are looking at the kind of stack up of the things. And if we confirm that that's a standard building block, that's a standard manufacturing footprint, that's something that we have been able to do, that's something that we see can serve multiple domains, this is where we go for a platform, because this is where we can get the best ROI. But in some cases, right, there is really some design that are very specific, that are IP driven, where the end customer come with something that say, hey, I want to create differentiation. The differentiation is not at the packaging, but it's at the system level, and we need to work together to make it happen. And this is where here we go to something that is much more customized, I would say, as a start, but always having in mind that this customization can last for a few years before it becomes maybe the next standard and the next platform.
And if we then, of course, everything needs to be measured, right?
Correct.
So if you're looking at these operating mechanisms, let's say, again, I'm a customer at the end of the day. Yeah. I'm a IDM, and I've come to you and I've said to you, what are the cadence reviews that you would recommend, or what OKRs would you recommend, or what design operations syncs do you recommend, in order to keep those ambitious roadmaps, but they need to be linked to KPIs. Yeah. How do you guide on that, or what would you suggest from your experience?
All right. So I think that there is two aspects to this. One of the first aspect is if you really want to keep and execute your ambitious roadmap, it is through empowerment and engagement of expert team, right, on this. So really here it's all the teams are able to take a risk-driven approach and make sure that they go through all this stage gate of the development, right? That will lead to predictable execution. And predictable execution means being on time with the right performance, quality, and cost. The second things that we are driving is OKR, right? Really needs to be, for me, something that is focused on delivering the results rather than focusing on activities. And this is also a pitfall. A lot of time, OKR are not defined properly, and then people focus on activity rather than the bottom line and the results, right, on this. So that's the two advice that I would place.
That you advise, yeah. I do want to dig into more of the technicality of things.
Okay.
But, I have 4 key focuses. I've got a topic on power electronics, e-mobility, renewable energy and storage, or advanced sensing. Which one is your favorite out of these?
Well, let's go through, power electronics.
All right. So, in high power applications, how would you quantify packaging impact? And which trade-offs do you visit most often?
Yeah. So I think there is 2 levels of packaging indicator or KPI that we are looking. First is when you are in a development organization, you need to have a roadmap, and then you need to drive, I would say, things such as watt per centimeter square, or you need to drive the thermal performance that you can achieve. So this is what I call COE roadmap and intrinsic figure of merit that you need to drive from a packaging point. Now, this is not enough, because what we want to sell at the end is a product. And the product is, how do you put this building block together that will be from the die, that will be from the packaging and from the system, in order to derive the best dollar per kilowatt. So that's how we structure, I would say, the KPI on this specific.
And you have a template for this, or is it something that's just adaptable?
Yeah, we have developed through the COEs that we develop, right, in different companies, template, roadmap, and then we drive this.
Fantastic. So based on that, lab to fab, what's your playbook for taking a lab breakthrough into a SPC capable high yield manufacturing line across multiple regions?
Yeah, so I think that first everything starts with the design. We talk about this a bit at the beginning of the forecast. 70 to 80% of the success depends on how you designing the things right? So really making sure that you go through a very thorough design review, and then a very disciplined stage gate process, right? And when we talk about this stage gate process, I think the first step is really to make sure that you can demonstrate on a very small scale the value proposition. So that's really the foundation of this. I'm supposed to do something. Am I achieving yes or not? The KPI. So that's, I think, the first stage gate, and you say, yes, I can, or no, I can't. As soon as you can this, it's really important to think immediately and to involve then the manufacturing, because this is where you start to say, hey, am I working on a single point? Where is the cliff? What kind of robustness I can bring to this, and what kind of scalability and repeatability I can have to this. So this is through this stage gate process where we involve the manufacturing. When we involve operation, they start to repeat the process, they start to understand the corner, and then they can define a specification. What is very important, and when I talk with engineer, is when you ask engineer why the specification is like this, what are you driving if you go on the low size? What are you driving if you get on the right side? And I think if the engineers are able to explain you this, you're certainly on the right path to get a successful story at the end.
Marvelous. And what would you say in terms of the importance of supplier partnerships? Now, of course, collaboration is everything these days, as you mentioned. But what makes a world-class, let's say, materials or substrate partner for advanced packaging?
Yeah.
So and what are the early red flags that are important, especially with the equipment, guys? I'd be intrigued to hear.
Yeah. So what I'm used to do is I'm looking at what are my end customer requirement, and what they consider, or how they will consider me as a right partner, right?
Okay.
And when I look at this, if you are a world-class partner, most of the time is somebody who can develop and scale the technology with you. And in order to do so, right, you need to be able to bring deep knowledge on the table, but also make sure that you do it with transparency and with a proactive sharing on this. So what is the red flag for me is if I start to work with someone and I start to see the problem happen, right, on this issue happen. But as soon as you start to ask a bit about what type of control they have they understood what are the limits, and if the things start to slow down, I think it's a red flag that.
But do you think maybe is it that a bit late already when the investment has already been put into it? Let's say, for example, you buy a tool, for example, wherever it is, CMP or CVD or etch tool, whatnot, or metrology tool. How do you spot that early red flag to say, oh, this is not the right company I should be working with?
Well, so on this, there is, I will say, a lot of things that are happening in exchanging roadmaps, right? But also assessing their organization and the way they work. So I think when you talk about partnership, there is all what I mentioned about the knowledge, the transparency and everything, but there is also the structure of the company, and is the company really able also to scale at the same speed as what you want, right? So these kind of things are really important as well.
Your leadership is rooted in collaboration and execution. That's what it's known for. What would you say are the day-to-day rituals that you've done that's kept your engineering, the operations, and commercial teams aligned?
Yeah. So I think it's all about transparency on this and building trust. So I'm really spending a lot of time making sure that there is a lot of clarity, and then there is a continuous alignment and level of priority on all organizations. So that's really drive the focus. We talk about common goal sharing, right, at some point as well, to make sure that everybody is steering in the same direction. What I'm also a big fan is I'm also a big fan of allowing and making sure that everybody in the organization know what is the escalation path and can freely escalate the issue. And often, as soon as you start not to hear about escalation path for everything, it is something that is becoming dysfunctional in the organization. So making sure clarity is there, and then the escalation path exists with the ability to help, right, when someone is coming there.
Could you do me a favor and share a non-confidential example where early code development with a customer altered design rules and accelerated the time to market?
Yeah. I think that one of the examples that come to my mind is on the BGA, right, at the very, very early stage. So if you think about this, before the BGA, everybody was coming with a traditional packaging mindset, right? And the idea was, how can I optimize the package, or I can optimize my bill of material to pass the reliability, right? And that was a common way of thinking. The issue is that with the BGA, a lot of things came as mounting on board and all these kind of things. And what we discovered very early as we work with the customer is that we were just choosing the wrong material because we were focusing on how to protect the die, while the failure mechanism was more the solder bolt that will fail first. So we needed to totally re-engineer the way of thinking and start to make trade-off to say, well, let's focus on where the first interface will fail so that we make sure that this is working. Let's make sure that we understand with the customer what are the real requirements versus, I would say, quote unquote, standard requirement in the market. And that really helped us to accelerate some of the extreme BGA size application, or also the reduction in pitch.
Marvelous. I want to go back to the situation now. Actually, where you are right now with Next Stage Ventures. So, just correct if I remember the facts that I have here. So, you guys are from Grenoble? You met in Grenoble?
Yeah. So okay. We met in Grenoble, right?
Doing packaging R&D.
Yeah.
Where is this?
That was in STMicroelectronics.
ST.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then reunited in Singapore, which is random.
Yeah.
That is that's it's meant to be, maybe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's meant to be.
Yeah. So, what gaps did you both see to say to yourself, right, I'm gonna leave the comfort of a very comfortable salary at a well-renowned company and say, I'm gonna do something totally different? And you both were working at a very large company, maybe $1 billion companies they were.
Yeah.
with VP level titles as well. What was the gap that made you both say, right, let's form this venture?
Yeah. Well, I think that when we look at this with John, right, we were meeting in Singapore and exchanging, I would say, overall our career path, right? And for sure, we had a lot of things happening as a corporate. But then we wanted to also do something slightly different. And we thought that when we look at what was existing and then the new technology that were coming, right, and the new requirement, advanced packaging will require a lot of effort in the future with a lot of new company coming. And when we look at this with John, we say, hey, with the complementarity of our skills, right, from engineering, strategy, and sales, we can put this together, make sure that we can help some of these startups and also activate some of the network or connect the dot when some of these companies have difficulties to connect the dot. So that was really what motivated us to move on this venture.
And the problems that you're tackling, I mean, of course, you've outlined 4 big challenges. You've got scaling wide bandgap with panel level packaging. You've got edge AI integration with minimal power latency. Of course, the shift to co-packaged optics is a hot one for this year.
Yeah.
We've seen this at all of our summits. And then, of course, navigating geopolitics and incentive regimes. Which of these has the most immediate upside and why?
Well, this one are just, I think, a short list of the various issues that we see now in the market, right? There may be more on this. Really what we see now is the geopolitics have still been something with a common denominator where we are having issue, right? And when we look at this, it will depend for each company on really what they want to do. But the one that is really for me, or the two that are really having the biggest upside, I think it's the transition to panel level packaging on a broad scale. I think people still see panel level packaging as only advanced, but it can be used on also power and a lot of things. And second, the transition to photonics and then to optical co-package is going to also revolution the semiconductor market and the industry. So I think that's the things that we are looking forward to contribute.
Do you, I mean, Jerome, if you could be, as you mentioned, transparent as you are with your team, but in this podcast, do you believe that this industry is going to hit $1 trillion by 2030?
I hope.
I will hope. Yeah. But do you think that co-packaged optics or these elements, these innovations are what's going to lead us to that level?
I think it will be needed because when we see the power that needs...
The need, yeah, in the data center.
There, the data center, the speed that is required, we need to switch to a new technology. So that's going to come for sure. That's going to come.
Do you have a time frame in mind? A crystal ball, maybe?
Yeah. Well, my crystal ball is always saying me that it takes 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, yeah, right? Everyone says 3 to 5 years. That's the short term.
For the breakthrough. Right?
For the breakthrough. I mean, your value proposition is we don't just advise.
Yeah.
We partner, execute, and invest.
Yeah.
How does that change engagement models and accountability versus traditional consulting out there?
Yeah. So I think that when we discuss this with John and in the business model and the positioning of the company, what we wanted to do is we wanted to go beyond paperwork, right? Sometimes consultancy is just seen as, hey, I have this question, you report and then job done and leave, right? And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is, of course, do the due diligence and do the work, then partner with this startup, make sure that we help them in the execution, that we can bring also from our network of supplier or from the network of skills that we have, bring this in the company in order to help them to execute. And ultimately, we want to have also some skin in the game. So at some point also, we're going to also invest in some of these company, right, to be part of the journey and the growth.
I think that's going to be the title of this podcast. We don't just advise. We partner, execute, and invest. I love that. Next stage promises faster time to market with maximized technology, revenue, and valuation. Everything needs to be measured.
Yeah.
What KPIs will you hold yourselves to when working with startups, SMEs, and corporates out there?
Yeah. Well, we are starting our journey, right? And definitively making sure that we bring value and that we measure this is important. I think that some of the KPI definitively for the startup will be the ability to bring not only a technology, but for them to increase, I would say, the portfolio and then the revenue that they can generate through their technology. So really looking at what will be the top line that they can grow, or how much have we been able to grow their top line potential, and also bottom line is one of the KPI that we will look. We want to execute, and when we talk about execution, most of the time you measure time, right? So also we will also hold ourselves accountable in order to make sure that when we want to scale or when we want to bring some lines from ground zero to production, we can do it, or we can enable this company to do it at the same speed of what the big IDM can do. So that's really what we want to do.
Marvelous. Looking at maybe the Jerome 25 years ago, what practical piece of advice would you tell him, focusing that he wants to turn packaging into innovation, into durable business impact?
Well, I will certainly tell him continue to explore and go out of your comfort zone, because this is where the next step are happening. So,
what does that mean? What does that mean? Getting out of your comfort zone?
Well, that means that I really believe that it's a life learning journey that we went in, right? And my new learning journey is to move from corporate to entrepreneur, right? Yeah. So that's really what I meant is
be adventurous.
Be adventurous. Go out of your comfort zone and then learn, and surround yourself with people that you can learn.
Awesome. Jerome, we're going to wrap up this podcast with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So you can answer these as short as you can. Okay. In one sentence, what problem are you obsessed with right now?
Balancing life and work.
Balancing life and work. Yeah. We're all in that. What does that mean? Are you working too much, or you enjoying life too much?
It depends on the day now, but I think it's extremely important for all of us, right? We are on the treadmill. We are having a lot of new things to do, challenges, and I think we really need to make sure that we have the right balance, because if we don't keep this, we cannot be fresh and drive necessary decision.
Absolutely. What's the most overhyped trend?
Overhyped trend, the biggest one.
Today.
Me.
All right. What's the most underhyped trend?
I would say robotics.
Okay, yeah, it's fair. It's a fair point. They're coming. They're coming big. Biggest myth about our industry you'd like to bust?
Sorry.
What's the biggest myth about our industry you'd like to bust?
It takes 3 to 5 years to be technology.
That's a great answer. What was your first big break in your career?
Break?
Yeah, your first big break, like your first big win.
Oh, I think that was to introduce some of the system in package on a big European mobile phone maker.
Nice. That means the NDA is still in power. It's still working because you can't mention the name. One decision you'd make faster if you could redo it again?
start my company.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Favorite leadership mantra or quote you actually use?
Believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm. What's your default KPI when things get messy?
Prioritization metrics.
Prioritization metrics. The best advice you ever got and from whom?
The best package is no package.
Who said that to you?
Well, that was Jeff Racy at that time at right? And but that was a good advice because that's
The best
lowest
package is no
efficiently.
Love it. What is a misconception people have about the semiconductor industry?
I think it's more about people think that semiconductor is always about the front end, and I think it's much more
about the back end,
It's-
especially now. And with
it's about the system level application. So that's a big misconception.
that's a fair point. Very fair point. What's a small habit that gives you outsized results?
Decide with 70% confidence.
So
decision.
take decision and live with it.
Yeah.
Book, podcast, or paper you recommend most often? Which one?
Book.
Which one?
I like to listen to the one on the leadership.
Leadership.
Yeah.
Like From Good to Great.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Okay. If you had 10% more budget this quarter, where would you put it?
Investing in a new startup.
And then you start, add it more. Okay. I was going to say ISIG. One tool you can't live without, physical or software?
Physical.
Which physical tool you can't live without?
My notebook.
Your notebook. Wow, that's classic. Classic. What's your quick test for a great hire?
Ability to assess if he's already having empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
That's a key value to look out for. What's your proudest product or project milestone?
I think that one of the proudest one has been how did we scale the silicon carbide in my
Last job.
company. Yeah,
That day you did it was impressive.
it was impressive.
Very impressive. What keeps you up at night besides emails?
Family.
Coffee chat with any innovator, living or dead. Who and why?
I'll go with Steve Jobs.
Why?
I think he has really been able to provide a lot of clarity, simplification, and vision, and really build models that.
He was a tough leader. If you weren't in this field in semiconductors, what would you be doing instead?
Veterinary.
Really?
Yeah.
Like animals?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
As a veteran doctor?
Yeah.
One prediction for the next 3 to 5 years you're willing to stand by?
I think I really think that through AI, that's going to drive the next technology, right? And we discussed about co-package objects and these kind of things. That's really the next big things to happen, and that's
To keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
And the last question I have for you to end this podcast is, finish the sentence. great leadership is?
Being able to lead in high and low.
Being able to lead in the highs and lows. What does that mean? We're being able to lead.
I think that when the things are getting okay and when you have outstanding market traction, it's usually easier to lead. But when the things start to fall apart, this is where you need really to show your leadership skills and being there.
True. Very true. Jerome, thank you very much for this wonderful podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on here. Sincerely wish the company Next Stage Ventures all the best and all the success. To the audience who have been watching this wonderful interview, if you want to reach out to Jerome, you can contact him on his LinkedIn profile just below. And if you are looking for some advising, Next Stage Ventures exists. But other than that, as it's always mentioned, it takes a village to raise a chip. So please, if you enjoyed the show, share it out there. And Jerome, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Salah.
Until next time, see you at the next episode. Take care and bye for now.